What can I possibly say about Hollow Knight that hasn't already been said by other fans or content creators of this game? Truthfully, nothing. This is definitely the hardest review that I've ever had to make, and honestly, it may be the hardest game review I ever do make. I like to think that I have a decent skill for being able to put how I feel into words, to describe how something affects me and formulate it into a coherent message that resonates with the viewer or listener, to articulate my thoughts in a way that is true to how I feel about something. But with Hollow Knight, I really struggled to do that. This game is just so vast, so unique in so many ways, and it conjures up so many feelings that it's really hard to describe. Maybe I'm just bad at game reviews, but I like to think that the real culprit is that sometimes a piece of media just comes along that has such a profound impact on you that you can't really relate it to other things you've experienced before. Therefore, it's hard to describe how you feel about it because it made you feel in a way that's foreign to you. Most game reviews are shockingly straightforward and simple. You can talk about the graphics, the gameplay mechanics, the bosses, the level design, the story, what you liked and disliked about the game. And Hollow Knight shines in every single one of those aspects and then some. And because of this, it culminates in a truly unique and rewarding experience that just kind of puts you at a loss for words when you're finished. This game is just so authentic from top to bottom. It's truly a labor of love in every aspect of its creation. And as a result of this, I feel like a fraud for even trying to say what makes this game so great, because A, the reasons are too numerous to count, and B, I also know shamefully little about this game. So if I get things wrong in this review or I misinterpreted anything, please go easy on me. It's not out of malice, it's purely out of ignorance. As I said off the top, there is nothing I can add to the conversation around Hollow Knight that hasn't already been said more eloquently and more thoughtfully by someone else, by someone who understands the source material more than me, so therefore they can better explain why a certain element of the game is so great or give greater context to why an aspect of the game is so perfect. All I can do is give my thoughts on what made this game so enjoyable to me, in the hopes that by me sharing that with you the viewer, you decide to maybe pick up the game and give it a try. And if you have already played the game, then we can just talk about our love for this game in the comments section or in the Hollow Knight channel I made in my Discord. Link in the description, by the way. So that is all this review will be, a story about my experience with Hollow Knight, from the perspective of a player who had never touched the game and thankfully knew literally nothing about it. I had not been spoiled on the game in any way before my playthrough, and I'm so thankful for that. Getting to experience this video game completely blind was such a great experience. So, like any good story, we must start at the beginning. I've recently branched out into variety content after making content on Destiny 2 for almost 5 years. While doing that, I did not have much time to play any other video games, and as such, I never got to play Hollow Knight. I'd heard it praised here and there in online circles, and I was happy for the people who loved the game, and I thought, man, I'd like to play that one day. Despite playing very few other games, I have always followed gaming news, so I knew that Silksong was on its way, so I figured, you know what, when we get a release date, I'll play Hollow Knight like a month before so that I can get hyped for Silksong. It will give me time to enjoy the game and fully beat it, and then I'll make a review on it and wait for Silksong. Well, Team Cherry, being the absolute chads that they are, decided to announce the release date 2 weeks before it was coming out. And I had plans the first weekend after this announcement, so I basically had a week to rip through Hollow Knight before Silksong comes out. But this wasn't so bad because once I started playing this game, I never wanted to stop. I streamed for like 11 to 12 hours a day, every day for a week. I stream on Twitch at itstizzle7 if you want to come by and watch me stream Silksong. I honestly can't wait. Anyways, luck was on my side because I had just made a video on the Jason Schreier article detailing the development of Silksong by Team Cherry, and luckily it caught the algorithm and some Hollow Knight fans decided to watch my first ever blind playthrough of Hollow Knight. They never spoiled anything for me unless I asked. They were extremely helpful during my playthrough, as I am the type of person to easily get lost in video games, and let me tell you, the traversal in this game is confusing as hell. If you're unaware, Metroidvanias are maze-like maps that are designed to be re-explored. In fact, it's mandatory. There are always certain parts of the map that you just cannot access until you unlock a certain ability later in your playthrough. This is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it encourages retracing your steps and also makes it so that there can be a secret literally anywhere you go. The amount of secrets hiding in Hollow Nest is astounding. Props to the community members who find some of these things, and a huge thanks to my Twitch chat for helping me out. Sometimes they would just straight up tell me where something is, but most often they would just say, hey, there's a secret here, don't leave yet, and then force me to hit walls or walk around until I found it. This was such a blessing for me, as I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I like to fully explore every area that I can before I move on to a new location. I don't mind some ability gating like I experience in God of War or Clair Obscur, but in Metroidvanias, I find I get more frustrated when I can't do something and I know I'll have to come back later, because I like to knock everything out while I'm there. And I do think a bit of a reason for this is because, as I mentioned, I'm terrible at knowing where I'm going or remembering to come back to certain places on the map. And Hollow Knight has a super big map and very little fast travel, so it exacerbates this issue. So as someone who is not necessarily a fan of this type of game design, it really speaks to how well Hollow Knight is made that I don't mind doing this. The worlds are so beautifully curated and the secrets are so fun to find that my frustration of not knowing where I'm going is outweighed by the elation I get when I find a cool secret. The game rewards you for exploring, be it an item to trade in at a vendor for a bit of currency, or a charm to potentially make you stronger, or alter a build to give you a new way to play the game. I'm a goal-oriented person. In most games, my goal is to experience all that game has to offer. And in most games, it's quite simple. You follow the main storyline, maybe branch off and do some side content, and boom, you're done. In Hollow Knight, that is very much not the case. This game gives you basically zero to go off of. It does not hold your hand in the slightest. This is daunting for someone like me, as in life, I like to be as optimal as possible. This game forces you to just go with it, to explore and see what you find, to just set out in the world and make your own journey. Which is honestly very cool. I hit Deep Nest pretty early in my playthrough, and my chatters were all saying that they'd basically never seen the game done in the order that I was doing it. I think it's awesome when games give players agency to basically just do whatever they want, however they want to do it. But this can also be a double-edged sword. On paper, I should not like this type of game structure. I like when a game says, go do this objective. When a story is linear, go beat this boss. Okay, that unlocked the next thing. Now go do this. It's very simple for my little peanut brain. But Hollow Knight asks so much of its player, and in the moment, you can feel stupid for not knowing where to go or what the hell you're doing. But the game is just so satisfying to play that it doesn't really matter. The world is designed to be explored. You are supposed to get lost and not know what the hell you're doing. That is the magic of this game. It is 100% a design choice to tell your players nothing and just say, figure it out. And I don't think I've ever played a game that leans into that design choice more heavily than Hollow Knight. It trusts its players to figure it out, and that is a beautiful thing. The map is very simple. Yes, there is the odd point of interest, but the game still demands that you remember where things are. There is a currency system, and I think it's tuned perfectly. You're never swimming in Geo, at least not in the early game, but as long as you don't die and lose your soul, which causes you to lose all your currency, then as long as you have been exploring lots and collecting currency from all the bugs you kill, then you're never too hard up for cash. I found the balance to be just right. I never had to go farm for money because I was just exploring so much and backtracking that I just gradually accrued it. The UI of this game is perfect as well. The game doesn't have a ton of upgrade trees with a bunch of stats and numbers. You just have a health bar and a soul meter in the top left of the screen, and truly that's all you need. These design choices enhance your immersion, and not just because the screen isn't cluttered with damage numbers and quest markers, but because it forces the player to get a feel for the game. You just know how many hits it takes to build up your soul so you can cast a spell or heal. You get a general feel for how many hits it takes to kill an enemy. You know it because you're learning it as you play the game. The charms are there to enhance your build, but again, they don't give you specific numbers of how much they are increasing your power. The game puts the onus on you to test each charm out and see how you like it, to experiment and tinker. I know the phrase, a game made for everyone is a game made for no one, is thrown around a lot, but this game perfectly embodies that, in the sense that it knows exactly what it wants to be, and it is demanding in every aspect of its design. It has an incredibly deep and lore-rich story, one that I have barely even scratched the surface of. After I beat my 112% playthrough, I had a lore stream where we watched some Mossbag videos and learnt about the world of Hollow Nest, and Mossbag says this at the end.
But of course, that's the appeal of a game like Hollow Knight. Having all of the answers to every question would just ruin the mystery of the world.
And I just think this is perfectly spot on. A huge part of the appeal is leaving interpretation up to the viewer, to tell your story and let the player decide if the characters were right or wrong. You see this play out beautifully in a game like Clair Obscur Expedition 33, ironically another indie darling. Renoir can be seen as the game's antagonist, but he has very valid reasons for doing what he does. Sure, he's sort of portrayed as the bad guy, but the story is not some cut and dry hero slays the villain and everyone lives happily ever after. No, far from. All the characters are deeply human and making the best decisions that they can, and the developers leave it up to the audience to decide who is right and who is wrong, or to realize that it really isn't so cut and dry. There's a lot of gray in these things. Both sides can be right and wrong. The writer of The Last of Us, Neil Druckmann, recently said in an interview that Joel was right to do what he did. Now, I won't say if he's right or wrong, but in saying this, it tells us what the creator of the game thinks is the right decision, and by virtue of this, it can kill any of the discussion and debate and nuance around the topic. Should Joel have protected the girl that he loves and saved Ellie, or should he have sacrificed her to help the greater good? I'll let you be the judge. That's the point. You don't have to agree with every piece of media you consume. In fact, it's very healthy to listen to arguments on the other side. It is most important to form your own opinion on things. I know this has become a bit of a side tangent, so I want to bring it back to the original point. The story in Hollow Knight is deeply rich and full of clues and secrets if you dig hard enough to look. But the game does not spoon feed you the story. You have to work for it, read clues, or do what most people do, watch a YouTube video from someone who's done the work and explains it to you. While this type of storytelling is not for everyone, it is a choice made by Team Cherry. A choice to trust that the players and fans of the game will dig further into the clues and uncover the mysteries of Hollow Nest. As for me, I don't really play most video games for the story, so it didn't really bother me. And I will say that I basically had no idea what was going on story-wise throughout my entire playthrough. But afterwards, when I watched the Mossbag videos and uncovered all the clues it was giving throughout the game, it gave me an even deeper appreciation for a game that I already deeply appreciated. Team Cherry chooses to show and not tell in their approach to storytelling. They show you the world becoming more infected with the orange bubbles in the crossroads. The final boss is stabbing himself at the end to get rid of the infection that plagues him. Truthfully, there are story elements hidden all throughout your playthrough if you care to look and investigate. But, as with all things in this game, it requires effort on behalf of the player. And what about the characters in this story? Amazingly, without any dialogue or fancy facial capture animation, Team Cherry has been able to craft some of the most memorable characters in gaming. This is a game about bugs, and these characters do not speak, yet they are full of personality. Zote is a know-it-all who is super full of himself. Cornifer is an adventurer who loves exploring Hollow Nest and cataloging each place he's seen. He is a cartographer, and you must find him in each area to unlock sections of the map. Mila is a little miner bug that hums as she works, and the noises and languages that they make up in this game are just so damn endearing. I just love the characters.
Ranjo's danger. Huh? Ganamachu. Helmadelka. Velmi Ardred.
Oh, that is awesome. I could go into detail about how much I love each NPC that you come across, but the point is this: all of them are filled with charm. As I said, they all have distinct personalities and traits without any voice acting required. It's just remarkable. Next, we have to talk about the actual levels themselves. Apparently, this game was all hand-drawn, which is just truly remarkable. I'm just in awe. The amount of care and attention to detail in this game is stunning. A creator by the name of Juniper Dev has a great video breaking down the subtle details in Hollow Knight, including the incredible world design, and how the levels are filled with so many visual layers, yet it isn't distracting to the viewer.
The crossroads in Hollow Knight, and if you look closely, you'll see that there's 6 layers of shells at the bottom here. When you move back and forth, you're able to actually see these layers because some of the shells will go on top of each other. That's nothing super complicated, that's just parallax, which is when you can see an object move because of a shift in perspective. Hollow Knight uses this everywhere, and the foreground constantly has these layers, whether it's grass or rocks, and it makes you feel like you're in the middle of this environment instead of just the surface.
Look at how many layers there are. 12. 12 layers here. Foreground rocks, multiple layers of eggs, the pathway, the spiky wall, the stalactite in the foreground, the 5 layers in the background, and the buzzing bee silhouettes. This is an insane amount of layers.
Remember when I said I feel like a fraud because there are so many people who better understand all the details about what makes Hollow Knight so great? Well, this is a perfect example, and I have another one coming up in a bit. Also, go watch the video I'm referencing, the link to it will be in the description. But back to the design of the levels, from an amateur person's point of view, they're just gorgeous to look at and explore. They are filled with beautiful elements unique to each biome. Green Path is like a lush forest. Crystal Path is like a beautiful diamond mine. Deep Nest is creepy as hell, full of tunnels hollowed out by centipede-like creatures. The enemies in each area also fit the world. The Hive is full of bees, naturally. As I said, Deep Nest is full of creepy crawlies, Green Path is full of forest-type bugs and dragonflies and Venus flytraps. Each area of the game serves a purpose on many levels. The bugs that live there do so for a reason. It makes sense biologically, and they all have a purpose from lore perspectives, especially places like the Abyss. Again, I have a very surface level knowledge of what's going on in this game. My playthrough was 60 hours long, which may sound long, but this game has a ton more replayability, which we will get to. But the point is, the world is absolutely stunning. I was honestly shocked when I learned that this game was made in 2017. It looks just as good as games releasing today. This is a topic for a completely separate video, but the point is, art direction is far more important than graphical fidelity. I don't give a shit if I can see the pores on a character's face or the strand of each piece of hair on their head. I don't care if the beer bottle has bubbles in it. In most cases, these hyper-realistic elements are honestly a waste of dev resources. I don't care if your video game looks almost like real life, I care that it's fun. Hollow Knight is a game with more character than pretty much any game I've ever played, and it's a game about bugs in some made-up land. It has a gorgeous art style that really helps bring the world to life. And as you explore these rich worlds, you're treated to one of the best OSTs I've ever heard in a video game. Truly, it's amazing. I could not stop listening to Green Path on repeat the week I was playing it. Just listen to the beautiful music in the background and all the amazing sounds in this scene. Wait, yeah, I do want to go down. Oh, man. So awesome being able to one-hit everything. Remember how I said I don't really have the vocabulary necessary to properly articulate certain elements of the game and why they're so special? Well, luckily, I watched a video from Thane Bishop that perfectly sums up why the music and sound design is so good in Hollow Knight.
Doing some homework for this essay and finding a video for Cave Atmosphere Miscellaneous 3, because that's what I do now, I found this great comment from user Alis Nelros specifically highlighting that Christopher Larkin is not just sublime at rendering musical compositions, he is also a master of knowing when not to use that music. Understanding that going from this to this is one of the best ways that you could possibly inform the player that they are not welcome here. Finding this comment from Nelros helped me be more aware of the locations in the game with music and ambiance versus the areas with just ambiance, and the way that those soundscapes informs both the nature of the world and your place in it.
Again, the link to that video will be in the description. Just like with every element of this game, the music also perfectly captures the moment that you're in, or in some cases, the lack of music. And he also touched on the sound design, the footsteps in this game, the whoosh of your nail. Every sound in this game is honestly perfect to me, as are the combat and ability animations, the wings you get to double jump, the shadow dash that you acquire to phase through shadow gates and enemies. They are all elements that add to the world around you and make Hollow Knight one of the most perfect experiences to play. Every detail feels intentional and well thought out. Team Cherry left no stone unturned. I have gushed so much about the conceit of the world that I haven't even taken time to talk about the actual gameplay, which is hilarious because gameplay is ultimately king for me in games that I play. And the gameplay mechanics in this game are phenomenal. First of all, the controls are extremely tight and responsive, sometimes too responsive. I would be doing the Path of Pain or a boss fight with really tight timing, and I felt that I made a certain input, like say a down swipe if I jumped the boss or went to pogo, but the game did a regular swipe. In reality, I probably just mistimed hitting down on my D-pad by 1/4 of a second, so the game registered it properly, and it was just a skill issue on my behalf for not hitting down before hitting the attack button. In the moment, I may have gotten a little frustrated, but in all honesty, it was my fault, not the game's. This game is completely fair. Nothing is cheap. Everything is doable if you're skilled enough. But as always, it asks a ton of the player, but it keeps it within reason. And while we're glazing the near perfect controls, I also want to mention that this game not only looks great, but it ran flawlessly, at least on my PC. I never had one frame stutter or one game crash or anything. Literally, my only complaint is the day that I went to start playing, I could not use my controller when it was plugged in. I did some research and I saw that this was a known issue, and in the end, I just had to change some Steam settings. So it's not the end of the world, but hopefully it's fixed for Silksong. But if that is the only blemish I can find on an otherwise near perfect experience, then we're looking pretty damn good. Admittedly, when I started out, I was a little annoyed that I didn't have a quick dash or a double jump. I just felt super slow and weak, but again, that is the point of these types of games. That is a design choice, not a fault of the game. But as you unlock power-ups, the game just feels better and better to play. The traversal mechanics in this game are phenomenal. A lot of the traversal demands quite a bit from the player. Some sections are quite tricky to get through, but then it feels so rewarding when you finally do. They can require pogoing or perfect timing to accomplish, but nowhere is the movement more demanding than the Path of Pain in the White Palace. I like to think that I'm pretty good at platforming games. I grew up on NES Mario and then into Mario 64 when my family finally got an N64, so this is really the first genre of video game I have ever played. I smoked Astrobot with very little resistance, but the Path of Pain humbled me. I spent 3 hours jumping my way through this technical masterpiece, every jump more precise than the last. There were certain parts where you honestly had to think long and hard about how you were even going to get through it. But again, as Team Cherry always does, they trust the player to overcome it, to figure it out. And because the challenge is so daunting, that rewarding feeling you get for completing it is made all the sweeter.
Oh, what the hell am I hitting?
And nowhere is this philosophy of challenging the player more forthright than in the boss encounters. I had heard Hollow Knight was hard, but I recently platinumed Sekiro, a game that some people say is the hardest FromSoft game, so I was not too worried about combat difficulty. And in the early stages, I was not challenged very much. I beat Hornet on my first attempt, and I thought, okay, this won't be too bad for me. But my, how wrong I was. I did the second stage of the Colosseum without the double jump upgrade, and it was tough as all hell. I knew in the back of my mind that I should probably just wait until I was a little stronger to come back and beat it, but I wanted to push myself, and more realistically, because I get so lost so easily, I just didn't want to have to traverse back to the Colosseum again. Also, I didn't know where the hell the double jump upgrade even was. So I toughed it out, and it was such a rewarding feeling to beat it. The bosses, again, like everything in this game, are very fun and memorable. The Dung Defender for one, I mean, what a hilarious concept for a boss. The Traitor Lord did give me some trouble, and it was cool to learn about the lore behind that one. And speaking of the mantises, the mantis fight in this game was awesome. The boss music, the encounter design, just so damn good. I fought these guys on day 1 of my playthrough, and I knew right then and there that I was in for a treat with this game. That boss fight is just too good, definitely one of my favorites. Bruh. Stupid. Nice. Wasn't the cleanest fight, but I knew I had it after that last run. But outside of Lost Kin, which I was sort of underpowered for, and it was before I had fully clicked with the game, I didn't encounter too many super demanding bosses until late in the game. My first roadblock? Nightmare King Grim. Not buying it. Oh shit! I was not sure. Holy hell, I adore this boss. I think it is my favorite boss fight in the game. Again, the ambiance surrounding this fight is just, chef's kiss. My Twitch chat told me to treat it as a dance, and I fully understood that once I learned the mechanics. You have to be on point, but after a certain amount of time, you just get into this groove, and you're truly dancing with the boss. Once I beat the boss, I felt unstoppable. I smoked the final boss pretty easily and felt it was kind of underwhelming, and then I fought the secret Radiance boss, and it didn't cause me too much grief either. So I thought, okay, the game is great, but the boss difficulty was definitely a bit overblown. But boy, how I was wrong. Turns out, in some DLC, they added Godhome, and with it, the Pantheon. A boss rush mode to test out your combat skills, and goddammit, this humbled me. I beat the first 3 Pantheons without too much trouble, save for Sly, who was the bane of my existence. I had to practice him separately to learn his moveset before I could best him in the Pantheon. But then came the true final boss, Pure Vessel. This fight is one of patience and pure combat skill. There is no platforming required in this fight, just quick reactions and learning the moveset. This boss definitely had my number. I reached the end of Pantheon 4 over a handful of times just to be bested by him each and every time. I practiced on him in the Hall of Gods, felt I was good enough, and then would still get beaten over and over when it really mattered. I finally beat him in my last stream with only 1 health left to achieve that 112%. Pure Vessel alone was so exhausting for me that I didn't even really have it in me to do P5 attempts. I now know what that challenge entails, and I will practice certain boss fights before attempting P5 again, but my ultimate goal was to 112% the game for this review, and to get ready for Silksong, and I did that. I also bested the Path of Pain, so the last real test that remains is P5, but that is a challenge for another day. But this is exactly why I like to fully beat a game before making reviews. If I had only done one ending to the game, I'd have still given a glowing review, but I would have walked away saying that the combat wasn't all that hard in Hollow Knight. And then I would get absolutely roasted in the comments saying, "You're an idiot. Go beat P5 with no bindings and come back to me." And that isn't even the end of it. The game also has a Steel Soul mode where you try and beat the game to 100% completion without dying once. You can beat every boss in the game in the Hall of Gods on Radiant, which means beating it without taking any damage. You can also beat the Pantheon with bindings on, which are essentially a ton of modifiers to make you underpowered. The replayability in this game is immense, and these aren't challenges that the community just imposes on themselves. No, the designers of the game put them in the game. Why? Because they trust their players that much. They know that no matter what task they put in front of them, that they will overcome it. Ultimately, I'm so glad I hopped into Hollow Knight. I wish I had another month to try some of these challenges, especially P5, but I'm so grateful for the time that I already had with the game. I'm so thankful to my amazing Twitch viewers who helped me with the game, and speaking of them, I'm amazed at how awesome this community is. They welcomed me as a total noob and answered any questions I had and never spoke down to me. We shared our love for the game on stream, and it was just such a rewarding experience. Truly my favorite streaming experience. Granted, I just started streaming in the last year, so I'm kind of sad that I peaked so early. I know I will have good times ahead with other games, but my whole Hollow Knight experience was just truly special. My friends I made on stream won't be watching Silksong for obvious reasons, so I'll get to experience Silksong in a completely different way. Yes, I was blind in Hollow Knight in the sense that I knew nothing of the game, but I had my chat to lean on when things got tough. They're basically like a walking wiki. I'm super excited to see how I enjoy Silksong as I discover everything completely on my own. On paper, I shouldn't love Hollow Knight as much as I do, because as I said, I don't like not knowing what I'm doing. It's an uncomfortable feeling. But Hollow Knight is just so unapologetic about what it is that you just can't help but respect it. It is similar to how I adore Clair Obscur, even though I was never much of a turn-based combat player. But great games transcend those obstacles. Not a fan of a certain element? Well, we do it so well that we'll make you a fan of it. And even if you don't become a fan of it, then you'll at least put up with it because the game is just that good that you have no choice if you want to experience all the rest of the great things this game has to offer. As I said, I've never played a game with less hand-holding than Hollow Knight. It doesn't even teach you that you can pogo. You just have to figure that out. It does have map markers where you can mark points of interest, but you have to pay to unlock those. You also have to pay to unlock the map. The one thing that I hated the most was that I had to use a charm to see where my character was on the map. I felt that this should be on by default. But many of my Twitch viewers have the entire map memorized, and good for them, I'm happy for them. And even though I would like to not have to run this charm constantly, I can fully respect the design decision, because it's emblematic of the broader context that it implies, that Team Cherry trusts their audience. You can upgrade your nail throughout the game, but you don't have some power meter, you don't know how much harder you're hitting for. But when you head back out into the world, the enemies that used to take 4 hits now die in 3. The enemies who took 2 hits, they now die in 1. You can feel yourself becoming more powerful. You don't need some number telling you that you're more powerful, you just experience it. Another design choice is that no bosses have health bars, and I love this. It adds immersion. But as you become more familiar with the game, you just instinctively know when they have like 1 or 2 hits left. Hell, when I finally beat Pure Vessel, I knew he was close, so I just went for broke. In most games, you can see when a boss is one shot, so you know it's safe to do so. But in that instance, at the end of P4, I just had to trust that I was going to beat him. I trusted myself in the moment, just like Team Cherry trusts its players. I've never played a game that is so demanding of its player. I am sure they exist, but I just haven't experienced them. Hollow Knight is a demanding game in every aspect, but it is those demands that make it so enjoyable, so rewarding, so replayable. It is for every reason I stated and many more that I didn't even touch on as to why Hollow Knight has stole my heart. That's it. I want to give a special thanks to my Twitch audience who showed up each day for a week straight to watch me play this game. It truly meant a lot to me, and I'm glad you all enjoyed it so much. I'm incredibly grateful to you. If you want to watch me stream Silksong, I'll be going hard on it, probably for the rest of September, so come by my Twitch and say hey. Links to my socials are in the description. And if you made it this far into the video, then I thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. And feel free to leave a comment about Hollow Knight. As I said, I adore this game and the community, so I'm happy to talk more about the game. That's it though. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.